I am very honored to be with such good company today. All of you joining us, along with 3 of our 4 success partners being on the panel today to discuss finding fortitude in challenging times. And so I want to preface this by saying, not everyone may be in a challenging time right now at this moment, right? Some of you, things might be going very well. You feel like you're right where you need to be. You're moving right along, and that is awesome. And we're glad you're here and you're still going to learn, because one of the things that we're going to even talk about today is with fortitude, you have to be prepared, because things may be going along smooth sailing right now, but we all have, everyone on here anyway has lived long enough to know that the rough waters will come. Eventually something comes along and kind of knocks us down. And if you're prepared and you're mentally and emotionally strong, then you'll be able to get through that without missing too many steps. And so this might just prepare you for that time when it comes. And for some of you, you may be in a time in your life right now where you're feeling some stress, pressure. There's a lot going on out there. So I know if you're a leader in a company, you're an entrepreneur, you own your own business, it has been tough with everything that we've had going on. So some of you might find that you're in challenging times right now. So if that's you, obviously, this will be very helpful for you today. So I'm going to go ahead and briefly introduce our success partners. And we'll get started with Sabre being the first one. But of course, you guys, we just sang happy birthday to Cindy Bird. Cindy is the founder of Image Potential. And most of you on here, I'm sure, know her and love her. You've learned from her at some point in your career, whether it be hearing her speak at one of our conferences, at another local conferences, or even at your company. Lots of companies hire Cindy to come in and do branding. She's a image potential branding expert and a communication expert. She helps with our Master Your Message, and she's awesome. And some of you are in her weekly group coaching as Launch My Success members, and she is a success partner. So Cindy Bird will be speaking with us today. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
And of course, Miss Jackie Grier Buchanan. She is a travel business owner, and Jackie has, and Cindy pretty close, but Jackie has been a part of I've Decided since the day I said I was going to open this organization to help people achieve their goals and dreams. The day I announced it, she said, "Sign me up, I'm in." And that was 7 years ago. And she's been along for the ride, and it is awesome to have her. She is a great cheerleader, and she is an awesome success partner. And I see quite a few of her Launch My Success members that are in her weekly group coaching are on board as well today. And then the third of the 4 of us, who's going to start first. So last but not least, I saved it in this order anyway, since she's going to lead us off with the first principle that we're going to discuss today, is Sabre Maurice. And yes, she is coming at you from Rhode Island. I can't talk today. She is coming at you from Rhode Island today, but she will soon be headed to Florida, where her and her husband will call home. So she's going to be a success partner for us down in Florida. And I don't know if Kurt is on right this minute, but I definitely want to make sure you guys know Kurt is doing awesome. Kurt White is also a success partner. He is in Colorado and still going strong out there and doing great things. And I see a couple of his Launch My Success members that are in his group are on as well. So without further ado, one quick reminder, if you see like all 25 participants in your screen, you might want to change your screen over to speaker view only. So if you know how to do that, it's a better experience, I think, when you're watching a presentation to be in speaker mode so that you can kind of focus on the person that is speaking. At least it is for me. And if not, then you can see everybody and that's fine too. But just a quick reminder for that. Okay. So today we are talking about finding fortitude in challenging times. And fortitude is that emotional and strong mindset. And so one of the principles that we want to talk to you about is being aware. So I'd like to have Sabra start with that. And we'll have a discussion geared around what we mean by being aware. And hopefully you have your worksheet where you can take some good notes.
Okay. Well, I tell my clients that I work with, like 90 to 95% of their battle through life is being aware of their emotions, their thoughts, being knowledgeable of different tools and resources. So awareness is definitely key. So we wanted to start by making you aware of what is called vicarious trauma. I work a lot with trauma with my clients, and I'm just going to kind of read you the definition of that. And it means picking up emotions over time by witnessing or hearing about other people's traumas, including their fears, pains, and suffering. So we all know that we can get trauma by going through our own experiences in life, but we can also get trauma by just kind of really connecting in and getting other people's emotions or things that are going on in the world, or, you know, like when something big is going on, like 9/11, or, you know, like anything, and it's in the news and we're watching it repetitively, you can start to get so caught up in it that you are picking up trauma yourself because you're just connecting and understanding and empathizing with other people's pain and suffering, and fear begins to kind of take over. So anything that you go through in life over time, it's building up that stress, those traumas, those losses can kind of turn into feeling traumatized. So it's just important to be aware when you're starting to feel those things and it's starting to affect you, that recognition means you need to do something about it. So whether that's talking to someone, getting some help, but probably to kind of stop listening to it too much, or watching it, or reading about it, or whatever you're doing, and kind of minimize your contact with it. Often it's things that are very much out of our control, which makes it even more difficult. So it's great to be somewhat aware of what's going on in the world and have care and compassion for other people. But when it gets to the point where it's affecting you negatively and it's becoming very negative and you're feeling the fears and getting down and picking up on different things and you're starting to suffer from it, it's time to kind of step away from listening to that very much. Or even sometimes if you have a friend or somebody who's going through their own things and they're talking to you about it all the time, you know, that can be another way that you might have to say, you know, I'm happy to support, but this is getting to be too much for me. So those things are important. So that's what trauma and vicarious trauma, or picking up trauma from the world, can be.
I wanted to, can I say this real quick, Sabra, as an example? The very first time I heard you use that term, it was the first time in my life I've ever heard vicarious trauma. And I don't know if any of you guys watching have heard that term, but I had not. Most of you know that this summer I lost my sister. And a couple of weeks after my sister passed away, one of my good friends lost her 17-year-old daughter in an automobile accident. And I happened to be, we were traveling for a softball tournament, and I was just beside myself. And I don't know how I landed on the phone with Sabra. I think we were preparing maybe even for another workshop or just talking. I think we were just having a one-on-one conversation about her being a success partner in Florida. And I was just really emotionally upset. And I was like, I said to her, I said, I keep thinking bad things are going to happen. I was so worried, even driving from Peoria to Orland Park. I kept thinking every time a car or truck would pass us, I was like having a panic attack. I was like hitting the fake brake, on my side in the passenger seat, just in panic mode. And she said, okay, you need to take a deep breath. You are experiencing vicarious trauma right now. You're putting you're taking on all of that trauma that is not your responsibility. And I just think that's an important example to recognize what that could look like, in a real life situation. And when she shared that with me, I immediately started to calm down, because I'm like, yeah, that is what's happening. I knew immediately. So I think if you can recognize that, then you can start to calm yourself down. And I just thought that was an important point to make.
And if it's anything that you have actually experienced in your life, or anything that you can very much relate to. So like Kim has young daughters, I have a young daughter. And so if it's something that you can imagine happening and how it would feel, then you're going to kind of pick it up more. Or if Kim just had a loss, and if you've had loss and you know how that feels, again, it kind of triggers or brings about things that you've been through in your life as well. And so if you can relate to it, it's even more of a risk that you're going to kind of pick up some of those emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the situational stress.
Mm-hmm. Right. So buildup of stress, and over time, we all accumulate emotions and stress just in life, even though we are coping, we're working through them. There's kind of like the buildup of the snowball. And so, and especially if you're in an ongoing stressful situation. So if you have a situation like your workplace, or a relationship issue, or some stressor in your life, an ill family member or something that is really persistent in your life, that's a time where you also have to recognize.
Oh, Sabre, you got muted somehow.
Yeah,
there you go.
It's like doing that by itself. And so there's times in your life that you can pick up stress and recognize that, it's going to have some effect on you. And times like, for example, with COVID, in particular jobs like healthcare, things like that.
You keep getting muted. I'm not sure what's happening.
No, it's weird. It's literally doing it by itself. You can pick up those traumas by certain professions, obviously first responders, counselors, people like that. So it's just super important to be aware. Teachers last year, students, parents, everybody in certain areas that were affected in certain ways are going to have certain traumas experienced.
Like that situational stress.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one was emotions versus reality, right? Our emotions can take over and blur our reality.
Right. It's kind of like what you said, when something becomes feeling like it's your responsibility, or your need to fix something for somebody else, you're taking on their problems or their emotions. And we just really can't do that. So we have to separate, as well as things that just really aren't in our control, or we literally can't do anything about. I say it's kind of like staying in your own bubble a little bit, because it might not be really affecting your day-to-day world, even though it's going on out there. And if you get too caught up in it and kind of, you're almost like you're in it when you're not, as well as anytime we have a buildup of emotions, it makes us somewhat irrational. So we can get very caught up and our lens can be kind of tainted by that. So it's important to remember your own reality, your own piece of the world, and where you're at, and what's really in your life and affecting you or not, and what you have control over.
Absolutely. Cindy, Jackie, you guys have any thoughts on that? before we move on?
No, I think that last one is really key. And I think with social media, we can get so caught up in those other things that are outside of our control and just have a sense of what can I do about it? And the reality is, yes, there are things we can do, but be real about what's in your wheelhouse to be able to do so that you're not inadvertently adding to your own stress and challenges. There's a local business closing, and I was like, I'm a business consultant. I'm like, that's horrible. I'm chiming in with everybody else. Oh gosh. And I'm thinking, does she know about the last round of back to business grants? Does she know about, and I thought, okay, I need to step in and to myself and say, while I would love to help her, I'm sure she has a lot of resources, and she doesn't, that's not something that I need to be stressing about right now. It was kind of that vicarious stress. We talk about vicarious trauma. I think that's almost what we're talking about here too. So I love what you're saying, Sabra. So good.
Yeah. I just thought everybody really needed to hear that term. It's a term that I've never heard. Jackie?
No, I just took some pretty good notes here, but this is funny, but I remember when I'm not originally from Peoria, but when Bergner's closed down, I mean, it's like the whole world here in Peoria. I mean, I had friends that were just like, oh, what am I going to do my whole life? I mean, they were really, seriously, deeply traumatized by it. So, I mean, I could feel some of that anxiety that they had even over a store,
Yeah, I love that. I love that you use that as an example.
I'm not making fun of it, guys.
No, I love that you use that as an example because it doesn't have to be something that's huge. It can be something that simple. I mean, change is very hard for people. Mm-hmm. If your favorite place closes, that can cause some stress on you. I know it sounds funny, but it's so true. Yeah, I took some good notes too. So I wrote down staying in your own bubble.
Yeah,
I love that. Look, I need to just stay right here in my own little bubble, right? We got to stay. We have enough worries of our own. We need to focus on that. And not that we don't want to be compassionate people, but we can't bear the burden. We can't bear the burden. And that's, I think, the point. Okay, awesome.
Kim,
and we are take your notes if you have questions. We're going to have some time at the end for some thoughts and for your opportunity to share. And do use the chat. I see the chat is fired up right there in some red. So do use the chat to chat with each other and share your comments along the way. Those are always fun to read. Although I can't see them right this moment. So if there's anything that we need to know right away, somebody's going to have to bop in and let us know. But so the first principle is be aware. Like Sabra was saying, just be aware of what's happening. And then the second principle is show grace. And that sounds so simple, doesn't it? It sounds so easy to do. I can just share a real quick example. We were at the ball field this weekend. My youngest daughter plays travel softball, and they were having a great weekend. It was awesome fun. And on Sunday, we were playing. We were like, so we got third place. We were so close to being able to play in the championship game. And we lost the game 3-2 on a bad call, like not a close call, like a really bad call, a bad call. And we have it on video even. And we tried not to be the crazy parent screaming. We didn't do that, but muttering to ourselves. I was fuming inside. I was so mad at that umpire for making a bad call. And, but then as the day went on, I started thinking, who knows where she needed to get to? Maybe she was in a hurry. I don't know what was going on in her life. But I decided to just show grace, and say it could have been worse. Cindy reminded me on Monday morning at our weekly success coach, our coaching meeting that we do every week for our success partners. She said it could have been worse. You know, your kid could have lost the game with a bad play. And I'm like, oh my Lord, you're right. It could have been worse. That would have been worse. But it's like, we have to give grace. It's not always easy. It sounds easy, but we have to recognize that every one of us somehow, sometimes, not all the time, but all of us at some point in our life are struggling. We all have something going on that you don't see, something going on that reel in our mind, what we're facing at work or within our personal lives. There is something going on that you don't see. And it would be a different world if we could all follow that rule to show grace and recognize that at some point, every single one of us are struggling and we're going to make mistakes. We may say things that we shouldn't say. We may do something a little hurriedly or rude or make an assumption that we shouldn't do. And we're all going to do it. And, we need to show that grace. We also need to remember that we have to give our own self grace. Be kind to yourself, right? I think we can be so hard on ourselves. And I'm looking out and I see the sea of all of you out there. And I've had the privilege of chatting with most of you one-on-one at some point. And I know you guys, and you're hard on yourselves and you beat yourselves up and you want to do good all the time. But sometimes, you're going to just disappoint yourself, right? You're going to hit the snooze button when you should have woke up. You're going to make a decision to do something that you shouldn't have done. You may have a consequence from it. You might regret it, but disappointment is not disaster. It's not like you got to throw in the towel because you messed something up. So you really want to practice being kind to yourself, forgiving yourself if you make that mistake, and remembering it is a disappointment. It's not disaster. And also just a brief reminder that grace is unmerited. It's undeserved favor. It's saying it's okay. It's saying you made a mistake or you did something, maybe even intentionally, but I'm going to let it go. I'm going to give you grace anyway. It's completely undeserved. That's what grace is. Different. It's different than forgiveness. It's different than mercy. Grace is completely undeserved. So maybe there might be things in your life that you're struggling letting go or giving yourself grace. Maybe you've made choices or made some mistakes and you're kind of holding that against yourself. I don't know if you've ever done that. I certainly have. But if you're holding something against yourself, it's time to give yourself some grace and let that go so that you can move on to bigger and better things. So I just wanted to remind you of that. I'm sure a couple of the success partners here have some pointers they want to talk about with grace quick before we move on. But those were the 3 points that I wanted to share with you and that second principle of showing grace.
So important, Kim. I love everything that you said, especially showing grace to ourselves, that learning to practice self-compassion is important, but we just often don't do it. One of the most helpful mindfulness practices that I ever participated in was about kindness towards yourself and self-compassion. And the first thing the person had us do was put our hand over our heart and say, I love you. And in your name, I love you, Cindy.
Aww.
And I do that every once in a while because when I first did it, I thought, well, that was weird. But the more I do it, the more it feels perfectly natural. And I found it very helpful. Something very simple we can do anywhere, anytime.
Well, I think we should do it right now.
Yeah.
I love that. I
Okay.
think every one of you put your hand over your heart and you're going to say, I love you, and put your name in there. So I love you, Kim.
Cindy.
And I think that's awesome, Cindy. I think that is so important to do that. Great reminder. I hope that you all did that, because it feels a little weird, doesn't it? It's like, oh, that's kind of weird, but it shouldn't be. Good one. I love that. Sabra's, if she had hearts right now, we'd be seeing purple hearts everywhere, because I know she loved that.
One of the things that I wanted to say too is that importance on your self-talk. I know from talking to so many people that the things that we tell ourselves in our own head are so more negative than anything we would ever say to anybody else. So that is how I tell people to check themselves. Like, if you're talking to yourself in a certain way in your head, question yourself and say, is this something that I would ever say to anybody else out loud? And then you say, okay, then I can't say that to myself either. So that's a really another way to kind of give yourself grace.
Absolutely. Very good. Jackie, any points here?
Well, it makes you get rid of that to-do list where you're thinking that, if I do this, if I could just do more of this or more, a little more, do this better, it's undeserved. It's free. It's free. That's what I love.
Yeah, grace, it's free. Mm-hmm. Practice that for you guys that have the little kids at home still. It's a fun thing to teach them grace. I used to do that with Kinsley and Katie when they were little. Just every now and then, not always, I didn't let them off the hook, but every now and then I would just say, you know what? Mommy at that time, they call me mom now, of course, at 17 and 19, but at that time I would say, mommy's going to just give you grace on this one. You should have this happen, but we're going to give you grace. And I think it makes a difference. It helps them understand. Obviously not all the time, but just initiating that. And even with the people that you love, your spouses, your partner, it's nice to just go, oh, that just made me mad, but I'm just going to just give grace right now, right? We can do it at any point or time. Very good. All right. Awesome. All right. So the third principle, and Cindy's going to lead us in this one, is seeking growth, seek growth, which I love. This is awesome because it's about that, personal development, but take it away, Cindy.
Awesome. Thank you, Kim. Seeking growth might not even be on your radar as something that you would choose to help you find fortitude. But think about what growth means. Growth means forward progress. Growth means that moving on that Kim just spoke about. And it's one of the most important things that you can do, because growth leads to learning. And learning increases confidence and competence, which not only strengthens your ability to handle challenges and adversities that come your way, but it strengthens your belief in your ability to do so. So I specifically want to talk about 3 areas in which it's important to seek growth. That's in self-awareness, in certain skills and abilities, and in your resources. So with regards to self-awareness, how do you grow your self-awareness? There are 3 aspects that I think are important to focus on: growing your strengths, growing awareness of your strengths, growing awareness of your tendencies, and growing awareness of your mindsets. So why is it important to grow awareness of your strengths? Well, your strengths can serve you well during challenging times. And if you know what your strengths are, you can learn to leverage them. Well, what does that mean? It means use them often, nourish those strengths. find a way to use them when you're facing what are called micro adversities. Don't wait until something major comes along, but practice using your strengths when you face minor or micro adversities along the way. You can draw then upon how you've nourished your strengths to help you down the road. One of my strengths is I'm a very conceptual and creative thinker. And I know it has served me very well in several challenging situations. And it's something that I can draw on a lot in those micro adversities. So the second piece of growing your self-awareness is to know your tendencies, though. So I don't like to use the word weaknesses, but these are those things about us that maybe are not serving us well. So I just told you I love to be a creative and conceptual thinker. I'm pretty good at it, I think. It's also one of those tendencies that gets in my way of finding fortitude, though, because I tend to overthink sometimes and I tend to overcomplicate sometimes. And those of you who know me and have known me for a while are probably nodding your head and going, yeah, I can see that you might do that. But it's important to ask yourself, what are my tendencies? How do I typically respond when things are adverse or I'm in the midst of a challenge? Do I tend to panic? Do I tend to react instead of thinking about how to respond? Do I tend to make mountains out of molehills, as they say? Do you even like a little drama? Some of us feed on that. Do you perhaps, like me, overcomplicate things? Do you procrastinate? No, those are all tendencies that we need to be aware of that might be getting in the way of us being able to have that fortitude that we need. And the other piece of self-awareness is awareness of your mindset, because your mindset, that's your set of overall beliefs that influence how you show up, what you think, how you act, and so forth. So we know what mindsets do when we have a positive one. But what I want to talk about today is the difference between a status quo mindset and an adaptable learning mindset. So again, this is to learn if your mindset's holding you back or if it's serving you well. Shakespeare said, there is nothing either good or bad in the world, but thinking makes it so. So it's important to be aware of those mindsets and how they're influencing our thinking. So what's a status quo mindset? It means that you're kind of stuck, you're okay with how things are. You're not really looking to adapt, change, maybe move on even. Status quo mindsets serve us really well when we're faced with routine situations or simple decisions. But when we're faced with challenges, things that are more complex, we are served better by an adaptable learning mindset. So I know you've heard of a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. So that's an example of status quo mindset would be the fixed mindset. I have a set amount of ability. I can't learn and change and grow. The growth mindset, I can learn. I can, mistakes are opportunities for learning and development. But maybe here's one you haven't heard of before. There's a status quo mindset where we are in the victim mode, that there are factors beyond my control that affect my ability to thrive, grow, and get things done, versus we can be adaptable and take on an agent mindset. The agent mindset says, I wonder what else I could do. I could make something great happen because I can grow my ability to do that. And that's really what we're talking about here is growing ability. So when you look at seeking growth, we've covered seeking growth in growing your self-awareness. The second area to seek growth in is in your skills and abilities. So maybe what you learned in growing your self-awareness is pointing you in the direction of something you need to improve upon, grow some new skills and abilities. But there are three areas that experts suggest are really going to serve us well in finding fortitude, 3 skills and abilities. The first one is to grow our psychological skills. This is our ability to shift that mindset. This is our ability to look at something from a different perspective, to reframe our thinking. So it's something like reframing that uncertainty that we feel and looking at it as curiosity instead. Or reframing our thinking that all challenges are bad to saying, their opportunities to improve. Teachers were mentioned earlier. I know there are some teachers or people who work in higher ed on our meeting this afternoon in the workshop. I've been a college professor, and certainly that the huge adaptation that teachers were asked to make through the pandemic, one teacher described it as trial by inferno. And I thought that was, that pretty much summed it up. But here's what he went on to say. He said, during that time, meaning throughout that adaptation that he had to make during the pandemic, I've learned many new things and gleaned important lessons about my teaching that continue to reap tremendous benefits for my students today. That's reframing in action, really, really awesome. And so growing those psychological skills. Another skill is to grow our mindfulness. That's to learn techniques that will calm us in situations that will calm our mind, where we can become more centered, more grounded, and we can respond better in the moment to whatever is happening, the good, the bad, and anything in between. There are tons of sources out there that teach mindfulness meditation techniques. Mindful.org is a great source for articles and also short meditation practices. If you need a deeper dive, look for a mindfulness-based stress reduction course, abbreviated as MBSR. Those are great courses. I went through an online 6-week one. That's where I learned the I Love You, Cindy, as one of those meditations. So grow your mindfulness. And the other skill and ability is to grow your personal power. Learn to empower yourself versus giving power to the external circumstances around you. Don't give your energy away. I know I have found myself in past situations where when I realized I was doing that and I shifted it back to empowering myself, wow, there was a not just a 360. I mean, it was more than a 360. It even felt like there was such a difference. Why should you not give your energy away? You need it. You need it to think creatively. You need it to identify new possibilities. I love, this is a cup that my daughter gave me. And one of my favorite movies is The Wizard of Oz. I use examples from it a lot in my teaching. But what it says on this cup is, you've always had the power, dear. You just had to learn it for yourself. That's what we're talking about. And when we see ourselves doing something with courage and competence once, we can recall that experience the next time we face a similar challenge, which further enhances our personal power. So you're going to seek growth by growing your self-awareness, growing your skills and ability. And the last category is to grow your resources. Scarcity of resources is a hidden distraction that compromises our ability to reframe, to adapt, to make good decisions, to find fortitude. So I believe it's important to grow your resources in 3 specific areas. The first is to grow your support system. Learn with and from other people. Now, when you are going through challenging times and having to deal with solving lots of problems, putting out fires, all the things we've been doing, our brain literally is exhausted. Biologically, it's exhausted. That part of our brain that we have to use so much is an energy hog. And sometimes we just need somebody else to come alongside us and help us think things through and see things from a different perspective. We need a second prefrontal cortex besides our own. So a mentor or a coach can help you with that. And people want to help, but you have to express what you need. You have to ask for that help. I've been through a situation with my husband's health issues the last couple of years, and I'm a very self-reliant person. It's hard for me to ask for help, but you have to learn to do that, to grow your support system. The second resource to grow is your knowledge. Why? Because knowledge is where you learn wisdom and understanding. Maybe you need more information. Maybe you need a new system or approach. Maybe you need to grow your knowledge about one of the skills and abilities you want to learn. With knowledge, we gain understanding. Why is that important? It prevents us from rehashing and ruminating over what's already happened, and it strengthens our ability to be in the moment and to also plan for the future. And the last resource to grow is to grow more space in your day. Ooh, everybody's probably chuckling about that one. Well, we can't grow more time. There's a finite 24 hours in a day. We know that, but we can create more space in our day. Why do we need to do that? Because it's how we learn to renew our mind and engage better so that we can deal with the challenges that life faces or throws our way, I should say. So here's some quick tips. Start your day off right by prioritizing your daily goals. Create meeting buffers. Those of you in the workplace or, wherever you're working from, reduce meeting times, build time in between to reset and recharge. Schedule focused work time. So turning off your email, turning off your phone, minimizing distractions. Take breaks. Work isn't a marathon. It should be a series of sprints. Just like a runner knows that, they know they need to have rest and recuperation time in between. We need those breaks as well. And finally, schedule some quiet time. Quiet time for meditation, breathing, time in nature, quiet time just to reflect over how can I use all this wonderful information I'm getting here today from these speakers. And I want to leave you with a quote, because I've covered 3 areas in which you can seek growth: self-awareness, skills and abilities, and resources. But I love this quote from a neuroscientist named Sam Harris. My mind begins to seem like a video game. I can either play it intelligently, learning more in each round, or I can be killed in the same spot by the same monster again and again. So that said, we can all keep hitting a wall. We can be frustrated, we can be exhausted, we can be stuck, or we can seek growth and we can learn to do something different, something maybe we've never even done before, and see where it will take us. And I know Jackie's going to talk more about where we can take ourselves to when she shares with you our last segment. So my fellow success partners, any thoughts on what I shared? Anything you wanted to chime in on?
I would say that the part you said, reframing, mindfulness or relaxation, and self-empowerment, self-care are the things that I consistently train people on over and over again. And I feel like are super important to growing. We all should be growing and growing through our lifespan, and using that tools and those awarenesses, it can definitely happen. And then you can grow your strength and power over time.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Love that you can help us do that, Sabra, too.
Yeah, she did a workshop called Smash My Stress. And we'll need to do that again in 2022. It was phenomenal and went through a whole bunch of techniques that you can use to self-calm and meditate. And Sabra is definitely an expert in that field. So it's great that you mentioned that, Cindy, and talking about resources. I would just say when it comes to personal development, I mean, you did a phenomenal job really covering every area in detail. I really can't think of anything that I could add at this point, with exception to, it's the hardest for us to invest in ourselves. Yeah, I don't know why. We don't want to spend money on ourselves as far as our personal development, our personal growth. And, we like our Starbucks and things like that, but it is, I own curves. And so even getting people to invest in their exercise and their health and wellness, it's very difficult for people to see the value in that. They almost look at it like an expense. But I would just say that remember, for every dollar that you invest in your own self, your own growth, whether it be in your health, your well-being, doing mindfulness meditation, a Smash My Stress workshop, or joining a facility where you can get healthy, whatever, having a coach for every, and these are statistics that are true and real. They're not made up. They're out there. The statisticians, the insurance companies have these statistics out there. For every dollar that you invest in yourself, you get a $5 return, 5 for 1 in long-term return. So just want you to remember that, because there's nothing else you can invest in and get that kind of return. Nothing. That's a big return. So it's important to just remember that that is one of the most important things that you can do with your money. All right, Jackie, did you have anything quick, because you're coming up next? You ready to roll?
Okay, no, I love when she said to leverage your strength, leverage your strength when you're going through adversity, and just grow that personal power. I love that.
I do too. For that, I wrote that down. Your personal power.
Oh yeah, the personal power. Thank you, Cindy.
Yeah, that was awesome. All right, well, we're going to go into our fourth principle, and last but certainly not least, Jackie's going to lead this one. And the fourth principle to follow in order to have fortitude in challenging times is to just forge ahead. I love that word, forge. So forge ahead. And so, Jackie, share with us what's on your heart regarding that. I
find that kind of funny, because I'm not very far from Pigeon Forge. I'm in Tennessee. I'm in the Rocky Mountains. So I'm going to forge right ahead here, guys. I'm so glad you guys are here.
That's awesome.
I know Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, but we're going to get a chance. We're going to get right to it here. And it's time to forge ahead and to take some steps in identifying. We're going to identify what is holding us back in this current situation during a global health crisis. We're all in this. We're all in this together, but what is holding us back? And so I've got some things, and you might be able to relate to some of those things. Lacking discipline. Are we lacking discipline to finish what we started? No, we only have October? No, it's almost gone, but November, December before this year is out. So what are those passion projects that you have on hold? So is it the discipline, or we find ourselves in some difficult situations where, families have been hit pretty hard, because families, and I can speak for my own, families are divided in their beliefs and their perspectives. You're learning some things about your families that you probably didn't know. And you feel that weight. You feel the weight, and some are very bold. You got those who stand on one side of the room and they want to wear the mask, and you got others who do not. And they have their reasons for not doing that. So that's just an example. What about stress? Stress, caring for loved ones, caring for your parents, your kids. Some of you are caring for grandchildren who are adults, and just trying to learn to navigate that space, navigating your self-care and while you're taking care of everybody else. So you feel that anxiety, and the anxiety is strong. The anxiety is very strong. Some people are very consumed with fear, and the fear of dying. Not just the fear of dying, but the fear of, am I good enough? Is it too late for me? Or what will other people think? What will other people think? So you're trying to balancing your family and balancing that personal time. You feel as if you are carrying the weight of the world just all on your shoulders. So that loss of drive and that ambition, which can also slip into depression. Some of us are just sick and tired of being sick and tired. So another thing is lack of financial stability. I have a coach who says that she was in between blessings when she lost her job and she had to go home. She was over 40 and had to go home and live with her in her mom's basement. So she said she was in between blessings. She's doing very well now, but just take a moment. That list does not have to, maybe you can relate to some of those things on the list that I just went over, but take a moment and identify what yours are. What does your list look like? What's stopping you from forging ahead? What I'd like to tell you is that you're not alone, because you being in this Zoom tells us a lot. Your success is our mission. And we have a proven system that will help you find that fortitude and get out of your own way. Sometimes you have to move out of your own way. You have to move into the next step. You have to move out of your own way. Moving out means moving out of that comfort zone, beyond the limits that you have set on yourself, the limits that are delaying that success. That another thing that you have to do in moving out of that comfort zone is to envision, to visualize those things, to envision a new opportunity, the things that you never tried. Open up your mind to learn something new, or to take a trip, to plan something. We have golden tours, and I love golden tours because you don't have to get on a plane and just fly all over the world, but right here in your own neighborhood, we've got people who are just experiencing their world, experiencing the city, or just the next state. So for me, being a travel business owner, to travel or not to travel, I'm going to tell you that is a personal decision for you. But for me, I know that it fuels my self-care and my personal development. And I did not feel like this all the time. I'm going to share with you that there was a time when I had to fight through my own fear to travel. I know people don't believe that, because every time you look around, I'm gone. Fear of flying. The anxiety was high, the tiny restrooms on the plane, the whole 9 yards. I would literally just sweat, have palpitations, just thinking about going on a flight. So that fear is real. It's a struggle. The fear of dying, the fear of somebody hijacking the plane. So, oh gosh, my imagination would just go crazy. But a senior high school trip to Madrid, Spain, and Tangier, Africa, it just moved me out of that comfort zone, and it was life-changing for me. I discovered that it wasn't that bad, guys, that I, thank goodness my parents had given me that gift, that I moved outside of that South Side neighborhood in Chicago, that I was able to experience the world. And since then, mission trips have been big for me. Did a mission trip in Puerto Rico, ziplining in the rainforest, opening up my home to foreign exchange students from Thailand, Buchanan, who was like my daughter's sister. So those are just a few of the things that we just want you to identify, and how you can move through that, to that comfort zone, Another member of our Decide community is Tanya Pops. And I know Kim knows his story very well, that she had a similar experience, but like I said, my experience took place when I was in high school, but this lady, just last year, she took her first plane flight. She was so afraid to fly. She said that she got on that plane, guys, and I'm telling you, she had a shot of an adult beverage. It was an adult beverage because she was ready, but she was so scared. And she said, but after she prayed and she was ready. She said she put that to the side. She didn't even need it. So now the world's her classroom. She's ready to go. She's just ready for the next destination. So I'm so glad that she ended up just fighting through and finding her fortitude to just conquer that fear of flying. So give yourself permission, guys, to step out and to say goodbye to some necessary endings. There's some things that you just have to say bye-bye to. You can journal it. We got a beautiful journal that we use with I've Decided, but you can journal or keep a jar of just some things that you intend to do, a to-do list. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? What do you want to experience right there in Peoria that you have not taken advantage of? Be a little scared. You're going to be scared, but do it anyway, and be excited about creating some new experience. Assumptions behind. You have to decide to safeguard. Cindy talked about these positive energy and positive vibes. You got to safeguard those. You got to safeguard that mindset, that new mindset, by reading and just listening to others share their own personal strengths and personal stories of how they got through, how they forged ahead, whether it be family, faith, forgiveness, what happened for them. And to make some time, my last one is to make some time to play. I make my living by living. So having fun, it boosts creativity and your energy and life. Plan a game night, do some karaoke, create your own playlist. And I mean playlist. I'm not talking about a song or, music. I mean a playlist where you write down, what are you going to do? How are you going to have fun? Find your tribe. You don't need a tribe with a lot of drama. So you got to be very selective in the tribe that you pick. But you want to be with people who are uplifting. You want to be with those who are unlimited thinkers. Celebrate. Let's celebrate that new fortitude that you're going to move into, and schedule some time to hang out. Schedule some time to hang out with I've Decided. I mean, we have a community that is growing and thriving and learning and encouraging each other. So that's something that is so worth it. And that's hopefully, guys, that's it, guys. But I want to also, before we move on, I'm going to give you something that my students really love. I was a teacher for, close to 40 years, it seems. But this is a quick little poem about an old grandfather and his grandson. The old grandfather said to the grandson who came to him in anger, because some of the things that we're talking about, especially when you identify some of the things that are holding you back, a lot of times, you could move into that whole anger zone. But this right here, it just blessed me. An old grandfather said to his grandson who came to him in anger at a friend who had done him an injustice. And the grandfather says, let me tell you a story. He says, I too at times have felt a great hate for those who have taken so much and with no sorrow for what they have done. But hate wears you down and it does not hurt your enemy. It is like taking poison and wishing your enemy would die. I have struggled with these feelings many times. And he continued that it is as if there were two wolves inside me, and one is good and one does no harm. And one is good and does no harm. He lives in harmony and with all around him, with everybody around him, and does not take offense when no offense is intended. He will only fight when it's right to do so and in the right way. But the other wolf, oh man, he is full of anger. The littlest thing will set him off and just set him into a fit of anger, temper, tantrums, and he fights everyone all the time for no reason. He cannot think because his anger and hate are so great. And it is helpless anger, for the anger will not change anything. So sometimes it's hard to live with these two wolves inside me, for both of them dominate. They can dominate at times. They try to dominate my spirit. And the boy looked intently into his grandfather's eyes and he asked him, so which one wins, grandfather? And the grandfather smiled and quietly said, the one I feed. The one I feed. So we have to be very careful about that mindset. And when you are definitely working to find your strength and your power, and that concludes it, guys.
That's awesome. I love that. You got to starve out the enemy, right? Feed the
you got to
positive.
starve it out. You got to feed. Yes.
I love when you talked about having fun. I think if anyone was around when we sang happy birthday to Cindy and they heard me sing, they were probably thinking, don't go to karaoke with Kim. That wouldn't be so much fun. But that was really awesome. So finding fortitude in challenging times, your 4 principles: be aware of that vicarious trauma, situational stress, emotions versus reality. Show grace. Recognize that everybody's struggling. Be kind to yourself. And remember, grace is undeserved favor. You're not giving grace if it's deserved. It's undeserved favor. Cindy did an outstanding job talking about seeking growth, self-awareness, your skills and ability and resources. And then, of course, Jackie ended it with forging ahead. Identify what's holding you back, move out of your comfort zone, and make time for fun. And I hope you guys, your notes are as full as mine. I do want to we're running over just a little bit, but I do want to take a moment to remind you, if you're on today, it's the discount code is at the bottom of your worksheet as well, but you'll get an email. I want to give you an opportunity to try our Launch My Success member program. If you are not already a Launch My Success member, and I know some of you are, and we are so grateful for you and thankful that you are a part of that. But if you're not, we have an amazing opportunity for you to try it. It's a short-term opportunity. It's October. You can join now and be committed for 3 months. It's normally a 12-month commitment, October, November, December. And if you don't see the value in your weekly coaching with the success partner that you choose, at the end of the 3 months, you can decide that you want to cancel. So it's a great opportunity for you to finish the year strong, for you to have a short-term investment if you're just unsure of what it would be like to have a coach, to have that weekly accountability. It's a great opportunity for you to try it, see the results, and then make a decision without having as long of a term commitment.